everybody. This is going to be a different kind of video. I'm creating a new playlist for this channel. It's going to be called Emails and Answers to General Questions. That's the only thing I can think of. Basically, I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking not just how I do certain things with my music, but also what is this and what is that and what does that mean, things like that. I did send out a survey on my Facebook, for people to ask me questions, but one of the things I want to do is make a lot of mixing concepts easier to understand for people that are looking to get into any type of mixing, whether it be for a podcast or a song or whatever. So this isn't going to be a deconstruction video. It's going to be more of a, here, let me answer a question, and hopefully I did a good job at that type video. One thing I want to be clear about, though, before I get any further is, and I think I've said this before, but I am not a gear Nazi, meaning I am not the guy that's going to sit here and tell you that Pro Tools is the best thing for you. I won't say that this effect is better. We all have our own taste. We all have our likes and dislikes. Some people despise Pro Tools. Some people can't afford Pro Tools. Some people, prefer to go their own way, which is fine. I'm never going to sit here and say one's better than the other. I study a lot. I read a lot about different DAWs, different plugins, and I know the strengths and weaknesses in most of them. So I know Pro Tools isn't the best out there. It's just something I'm comfortable with. It's something I did in school. It's something I'm good at teaching. And the concepts are relatively easy to understand, within Pro Tools. So don't think that because I'm using Pro Tools, you have to as well. A lot of these concepts will apply to your DAW. So the first question that Stephen Corey asked me, and I'm going to elaborate on this question too, because I knew what he was asking, and it kind of is a two-part type of question. Basically, what is a submix and what is an auxiliary channel? So I'm going to make this as easy as possible. A submix and an auxiliary channel, they're pretty much the same thing as far as what they are, okay? They're both used via an auxiliary channel. Now, if you look at my Pro Tools setup here, I created this before I made this video. If you look at the mix window, each channel is kind of set up how you would see like in a studio with the analog mixer, okay? You have each channel has its fader, its panning, its solo button, recording button, all that kind of stuff. The general concept, and this applies to most DAWs, is the audio comes in from the top, and then it goes out the bottom. And how you know where the audio is coming from and where it's going to is if you see right here in the middle, you have these in and out slots, okay? Now, I don't have my 11 rack set up at the moment because I had to route the audio differently, but if I were to, let's say, play the guitar on this track, I would use my interface button, or my in button. I'd find my interface, which would be the 11 rack, and I'd click on that, and that would allow me to play the guitar, and the channel would see that signal. Where the signal goes out depends on where I route it to, okay? Let me open up two more tracks here. So you have a submix and a master channel. These are the last two channels that are always on my chain. The master is an overall, you can apply effects to it, but it's an overall volume control. So no matter what goes on in your mix, you can turn up and down the master to just control the general output. Either way, and I'll get into the submix in a second, but the submix and the master are going out to my main speaker channels, A1 and 2. You can rename these however you want to. It doesn't have to be A1 and 2. Now, if you look here, and I'll explain this confusion in a second, but these two channels, the guitar submix and the vocal submix, they're both going into this submix. And actually, let me stop right there. I'll get into that in a second. But the general idea I want to convey to you is the fact that the audio goes in and it goes out the bottom. And then you have your two buttons that tell you, hey, this goes in and it's going out to this particular channel. Now, these blue tracks that you see right here, again, they don't have to be blue. They can be whatever you want. These are my audio tracks, okay? I just put in blue so you guys can see the difference between the audio and auxiliary. And you can also tell by these little icons. You have your audio WAV files and you have your not audio WAV files. So the audio track is basically where all the audio gets printed on, it gets recorded on, you can cut, you can edit, you can do all these crazy things, okay? Now, the difference between an audio and an auxiliary channel is the auxiliary channel is kind of like, it's a channel that you can't record audio to, but you can use it to manipulate how the audio gets routed within a system, okay? So we'll start with the basics here. We have my guitar left and my guitar right channel. And next to that, I created a guitar submix. Again, this submix, it's an orange. It has no audio. And what I did here is the audio is coming into my inputs. It's going out my guitar submix into my guitar submix. See, you have your out and your in. And then this submix goes out to the main submix, which goes out to the main outs, okay? The same thing applies to the vocals. I have them going in and then out to a vocal submix and then going out to the submix. So in a sense, these these two submixes go out into the main submix, while the guitar vocals and backing vocals go into their respective submixes. Now you might be asking, why am I doing that? What's the purpose of taking elements and then making submixes, then making another submix? I do this because it allows me to have more control over a group of instruments. Now, with the guitar left and the guitar right, let's assume that I wrote the guitar part. It's the same guitar part, but I wrote them separately to pan them, okay? I don't like to apply EQ or compression to individual guitar tracks because it could cause phase issues, and it's also monotonous. You're just doing the same thing to both tracks since they're the same thing, essentially. So what I end up doing is I apply I apply those plugins to the submix, so it treats those two tracks as a whole. Now with the vocals and the backing vocals, I do and I will apply EQ and compression to each of those tracks, because my main vocal I want it to sound different than the backing vocals, for example. But I still route them to a submix because then I can treat it all as a whole, okay? This submix right here, this is the main submix that all the audio and all the auxiliary tracks go to before it hits the master. Again, you're asking, why would you do all that? Well, it still allows me to do some final changes to the overall song before I print it to master it. I don't do any crazy changes, just little minor subtle things to just kind of mold the track even better. So it's a lot of surgery that happens here. You have, you'll have some cases where you have your two guitars get all EQ'd and compressed and all that stuff into a submix. Then you have other cases where I have a vocal get EQ'd a certain way, a back vocal get compressed a certain way, then I do an overall compression, and then I do an overall compression. So that's the idea behind what a submix is in your audio, into whatever project you're doing. But that's not the only thing you want to use an auxiliary track for. So give me a second and I'm going to open up a new file and show you what I mean. All right, so here is the next thing I want to show all of you. So right here, as you can see, I still have my submix and I still have my master. And then ignore this delay right now, okay? I have a synth. I have two synths and I have a piano, okay? I'm gonna mute this delay. This is an auxiliary track, you can tell because I made it orange. I'm gonna play this real quick. All right, so you get the idea. In fact, if I solo the piano, this is what you're gonna hear. So as you can tell, it's a very simple riff, or melody rather. You can hear the reverb because the reverb was part of the plugin, but there's no delay. And let's pretend I want delay. I don't really care about this, but let's pretend like I need delay to make this more epic, okay? The reason why you want to use an auxiliary track to create either a delay or reverb is for two reasons. One, let's say you have a snare, let's say you have a guitar and a piano that you want to add a reverb or delay to. Well, the first thing that happens is you bog down your computer system because now you have too many instances of that particular plugin going on at the same time, okay? Reverbs and delays, they take up a lot of computer resources. But even if I had the fastest computer in the world and that wasn't an issue, the other issue that happens is let's say you add a reverb to a guitar track. The reverb will make your guitar track sound not up front in the mix. Now, I will admit that a lot of new plugins are coming out today that have a mix icon that allows you to blend in, let's say, the reverb or delay or whatever you're trying to use. But it still doesn't fix the problem of the CPU being bogged down. Now, I'm also going to jump around again and say that when it comes to compression and EQ and any type of dynamic processing, you do want to apply that on each individual track, okay? But when it comes to delay and reverb, you don't want to go that route. I'm going to jump one more time and I'm going to get back on point. You can use sidechain processing for for any type of dynamic plugin, and by that I mean you can use an aux track for compression and EQ, but again, that's a very rare thing. So to get back on track, let me explain to you what all this means and how it all applies. So this is an auxiliary track, just like I showed you before, but instead of using this as a submix, I'm going to use it as sort of a sidechain. So I want to add delay to this piano, okay? It doesn't matter if the piano is mono and the delay is stereo or vice versa. None of that really matters, okay? If you want to add a mono delay to a stereo piano track, that's fine. If you want to, add a stereo delay to a mono piano track, totally up to you. That's, the purpose of this video is to show you, why I do these things and what it all means. So what I do is you see I created a delay auxiliary track. I'm going to unmute that now. And I have the delay also going to my main submix. So it's going to my main submix in addition to my piano and my synths going to the main submix. Where this is different though is I add a delay input. Now this doesn't make sense right now, but it will. After I do that, I add just a basic dynamic delay. I'm just going to leave it stock. I'm not going to make any changes to it. And so what I do is each track in Pro Tools, each audio track, in fact, each track in Pro Tools, unless it's the master or VCA or a MIDI track, has a sends option. And so what this means is the audio is coming in from the top, but I want it to go out, let's say, into my delay. So I'll create, I already created the bus that bridges the gap. One thing I didn't cover is each one of these are called buses. So like your delay to delay is a bus. It's a bridge between the two tracks. Okay. And so what I do is I created a link between these two tracks. Again, these two tracks are independent from each other. The only thing they have in relation to each other is this bus. So the audio will come in and go out this delay into this delay track, which will send the signal back to the audio track and back out into wherever you're routing the audio to. And now when I hit play again, you're still not going to hear the delay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the delay fader. So if I turn this up, let's just bring it to nominal, or let's say 2 decibels below nominal. Now when I play it, and you can hear that delay kick in after you stop it. A lot of times with these effects, they're very subtle, unless, let's say I pan the delay. You get the idea. And that's really what you would use an auxiliary channel for. So it's not just using the auxiliary channel for submix, you're using it also for an aux send. You can also do the same thing with reverb too. It's the same concept. You create the reverb track, route it to your main submix, and then your input for the reverb will be, you'll create a bus and you'll call it reverb, let's say. And then of course to create a bus, you find your bus, or, you create a new one and you rename it. And then instead of having delay, you'll have, you can have either delay and then create a new reverb or just have reverb. It's up to you. But what this does though, is it makes it so you can have your entire mix use this delay as its main delay, or the entire mix can use a certain reverb. So let's pretend I want the guitar and I want the snare to share the same reverb space. I'll create one instance of that reverb, create my input, the reverb. I'll create whatever reverb I want, and then I'll go to the snare, and then I'll go to the guitar and add the bus for each of those tracks. and then I'll control the fader to see how much I want to how much I want the reverb to bleed in. And now the snare and the guitar are sharing the same space, so to speak, if that makes any sense. So in a nutshell, aux tracks are they're a very amazing tool. With any audio production, there's a lot of routing to that takes place, and it seems very daunting and confusing. But you end up kind of getting your own pattern together. You get a certain way of doing things. You learn how to compartmentalize, and then so that helps a lot. So you compartmentalize, like all your guitars go into this submix, all your drums go into this submix, all your piano goes to this submix. All those submixes go to the main submix, and then so you can control groups better. And then again, there's that aspect, but then there's the aux sends aspects where you use auxiliary tracks to create a delay or reverb or whatever, and you have those feed into whatever track you want to affect. So I know there's a lot to it, and I just woke up, so I'm not very clear, but I did want to get this video done to explain it all to you. I probably missed a lot, so if anybody is watching this who knows about this stuff, and thinks, oh, you forgot this, you forgot that, by all means, leave a message, explain what I missed. As with any audio production, there is a lot you can miss, especially when you're explaining things. And each song is different. Each mixing engineer is different, and we all have our own ways, and there's a lot. So this is the nutshell version, and I hope this answers your question. For anybody that's been following the series, I am going to make more videos like this, but I'm not going to just make them unless questions are asked, because I want to focus on deconstructing my music. If you haven't already, check out my website, aloststateofmind.com. That's where all my music's at. And again, keep coming with the questions. They're fun and they're great, and I know what it's like to start off in this type of and these types of activities, and it sucks when we don't have answers or we don't know what's happening. So I'm going to do the best I can to help you guys out. So that's it, and thanks for watching.